John just raised the level of the game for all those people around him. And I think it was hard to work with John or climb with John and not try to do your best. And I think that's it's a wonderful quality of a friend.
I mean, we had an interesting relationship right from the beginning with John. And I mean, part of it was John wanted to do environmental work. And we didn't really have an environmental practice. John was very clear that that was something he wanted to do, and he really took the ball and ran with it. The other thing John said to us when he started was that he didn't want to work 12 months a year, that he had other things he wanted to do. He wanted to travel, he wanted to kayak, he wanted to climb mountains, and he did that.
He'd grab something and run with it, and one of them was bird watching. And for most of us, we see a bird and we go, oh, that's great, oh, it's maybe like a red robin. But for John, he would gobble it up and knew the Latin name and knew everything about the bird. And so he'd lay in bed in the morning when on Vashon, and he'd open the windows up, and because you wanted to hear all those birds in their yard and in the woods around him.
And he didn't have very good hearing, so he couldn't hear them very well. So he ordered up online a pair of hearing aids, only to be used for bird watching while laying in bed in the morning. He loved riding into the city. They actually moved from the south end of Vashon Island to the middle of the island, and although John loved the new house, he didn't like how short his bike commute was.
So the length of it.
Yeah, so often he'd have to go do an extra loop farther down the island before he'd hit the ferry, either on the way to work or on the way back, so he could get a little extra workout in.
And I could never keep up with him heading up the hill off the ferry on Vashon. He would hit the hill at a full tilt, and he seemed to never slow down. And so that's when I parted ways with him. I'd see him the next day.
And he met Susan on the island and found an amazing partner for his passion for being out in the wilderness. She shared that with him.
He really treasured the work he did for tribal clients, and it's shown by the outpouring of affection from the tribes for him.
We brought you to where we are today because this is what John loved. You know, he kayaked these places, and he believed in protecting them.
He would come up to the house for dinner, took a genuine concern in what the kids were doing, what their interests were. He learned our individual personalities. It was great having him around to see that genuine concern. He brought me to some fights. That was great.
Our friend knew what, in our language, isak is like respect, but it means more to us than the English word was able to describe. Isak. He knew what that was. He treated all of us as individuals with it, and was honored to call him a friend.
One of the funny things is I've known John so long as we both had hair back then.
He was there through thick and thin, and when we miraculously pulled out a whaling quota at the IWC, our elder was so thrilled with his work that she called him Starman.
With John, doing any of our legal work, we never lost a case. There's a void. I mean, there really is. There are very few public interest lawsuits and things, and public interest lawyers that are willing to donate their time. And John was one of the greatest ones at doing that.
John and I were on the other side of each other on 4 different cases. They were complex, difficult, important cases. Frankly, my clients had their future livelihoods at stake. And so you wouldn't necessarily think we would have the regard that we had for each other. But one of the reasons was John, I always felt, was more concerned about doing right than he was about proving that he was right.
He was our attorney, so I expected that he was going to know the legal ins and outs, the statutes, the regulations, and all of that, which he did back of his hand. But I was also amazed at the depth of his knowledge about the biology of what the owl needs, its habitat, history, its needs, as well as the forestry. I mean, he knew about timber harvest schedules and age of class stands and all of the range. I mean, he knew as much or more than the forest managers that were on the other side about how they ran their business and what that meant.
For the most part, we saw things the same way, but every once in a while we'd have different ideas about how to do something in the case. And I'd usually come around to John's point of view.
When you practiced law with John, he made you feel like you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing. It's really the truth. Because he was that good. I can't overemphasize that enough. I mean, he was just brilliant. He was just really, really smart.
John cared about it all and really understood that it was all connected. He worked with us on, fought for Puget Sound, protecting shorelines. He worked on getting water in streams in eastern Washington. He worked on protecting forests and places that he loved. He was really, really successful and such an asset for us.
John had such an open and generous way of looking at things that he was fun to be around. He just loved adventure. He loved challenge. And I think he challenged the rest of the group that he was with to push themselves a little bit more, go a little farther, because he liked it so much, and he just sort of was infectious in that way. He just made you want to do more.
John was incredibly inspirational and gave me a new focus and a new direction, and really encouraged me to take on issues that I felt strongly about.
I try and do a good job, to be professional for myself, but I wanted to do a good job for him too. And I think that's a quality of an amazing leader, is that he didn't expect it or demand it. I wanted to do that because I respected him so much for it. And I did things I didn't know I could do.
John lived his values every day as much as anybody I know, and accomplished so much in a short time frame. And that's true of his outdoor activities, that's true of his professional life, it's true of his personal life. He didn't put off to another day what he really believed and what he really wanted to do, and that's a good lesson for all of us.
There was always so much more to John's life, and the fact that we were able to share a bit of it, and he was part of our family to the extent that he was for the last 20 years was really a gift to us.
I like remembering about John was that he lived the advice of Edward Abbey, which was not just to fight the good fight, but to make sure we also took time to get out there and revel in the beautiful world that is our inheritance. And I'm happy that he died that way.
We're gonna miss him.
I don't see anybody to replace John at the moment.
A lot of the wilderness character of the Methow and the ability of the Methow to sustain wildlife both in stream and on land is part of that legacy of John. Gonna miss him a lot. Gonna really miss him a lot.